Thanks for clicking on Wayne.com for this semi-state preview edition of Inside the Zone. As always, Justin Kinney from the News Sentinel joining me, and we are talking 4 local teams still alive, 1 win away from playing for a state championship. Out of these 4 teams, is there anyone that surprises you the most, or anyone that really sticks out to you that you said at the beginning of the season, I didn't see this one coming?
Well, I think Northfield out of the 4, I think you didn't expect that just because of their traditional program, and they just haven't done it. First sectional championship, first regional championship in school history. Here they are in semi-state. So props to them. I think of the 4, that is the team that really stands out to me. And Woodland's probably second, but we saw the potential there with Woodland. I don't think we did with Northfield.
All right, let's move on to the 5A semi-state game. You got Snider at home against a Kokomo program they're pretty familiar with. They played them in 2009, 2010, 2011. All those were, I don't want to say vicious beatings, but very much Snider was in control of those games from the outset. So heading into this one, what makes this year's Kokomo team different? They come in undefeated, and I think more impressive than the teams that we've seen in the years past for the Wildcats.
Yeah, Kokomo, 13-0. They've beaten everybody they need to, and they've handled a lot of the teams they've played. I think running back, 2 pair running backs that they have with over 1,200 yards rushing. Keenan Wheeler, Jerron Gray. Keenan Wheeler, 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns. Jerron Gray, 1,700 yards, 24 touchdowns. They like to keep it on the ground, and sophomore Kyle Wade can throw a little bit over 1,200 yards passing and 13 touchdowns. But I think what Kokomo loves to do is run the ball and kind of establish their running game. And they beat Westfield, which you kind of look at the records and but Westfield plays that difficult Indy schedule. So great win for Kokomo, great run for them. I think it'll be closer than we saw 2009, 2010, 2011, but I just don't know if the Wildcats can hang with Snider, especially this Snider team.
When you take a look at the ground game, what concerns you most if you're Snider? Because, Brett Colby's running that offense, or has in the past. It's a little bit difficult to discern where the football is coming out of the line of scrimmage.
Right.
Does that concern you? What do you work on during the week to make sure that isn't a problem on Friday night?
Well, I think you just got to concentrate up front, and you just need to dominate up front. You looked at that DeWanger game, and DeWanger was just able to handle that Snider defensive line, surprisingly, to be honest, I thought. And that was why DeWanger was able to have success and move the ball on the ground. That is what Kokomo is going to want to do. They are going to want to establish their run and win the line of scrimmage battle up front. If Snider allows them to do that, then Kokomo is going to be able to put up some points and control that clock and control the ball and really kind of try to eke out a win. So that is where the primary emphasis for me is at Snider defensive front.
Snider was able to run the ball fairly effectively last week, specifically Dominic Scott. He goes for $126, 3 touchdowns. He was huge. Money Woods chips in for 64 yards. So those 2 guys combined, I think we always have to throw them together just because they'll use whoever's working on a given night. Yeah. They go for almost 200 yards. How much confidence do you have in the running game going forward if you're Snider? How does that need to set the tone in a game that this could be a quickly played game just because Kokomo isn't going to throw the football a whole bunch?
Yeah, and I think that running game is big for Snider, but I think that passing game will be huge. I think that's the emphasis going in Friday for me is Kokomo has not seen the athletes that they're going to see on Friday and the offense of attack that Snider has. You look at it, Kokomo's only given up just under 15 points a game, but they played Chesterton, who's tough. Jeff is tough, but Marion and Logansport and those teams in Richmond, I mean, they're just not good football programs. And a lot of wins on that list just aren't impressive to me. They have a couple of impressive wins, but including Westfield last week, but overall, just not impressed. That's not a 13-0 that jumps out at you as going, whoa.
When you take a look at what Snider did last week, we were talking about Mishawaka. They're a team that on a given night, they might not throw the football once.
Right.
So heading into last week, you think they're not going to throw the football. Snider's defense gave up, I know it's not a ton, but it is for Mishawaka, 134 yards in the air. How concerned are you, and how similar is Kokomo's offense relative to what they saw last week in Mishawaka to be a good preparation for this Snider defense?
That's the thing with Snider throughout this season is we've seen them give up a lot of fourth quarter points when the game's in doubt. And I think the lesson they learned last week is they are too far in the playoffs to allow a team to score a couple of junk touchdowns in the fourth quarter because those teams are good enough to come back and beat them. And, they needed some plays against Mishawaka on Friday to kind of seal that game and sitting there 35-32 with a couple minutes to go. So, and it just felt like Snider dominated the football game. So that is a concern that I have with Snider in semi-state and then hopefully state championship game is if they get ahead, they just kind of take their foot off the pedal defensively a little bit, and they need to stay engaged, and they cannot allow Kokomo to make some big plays. If they can get ahead early, I think they will, but they cannot allow Kokomo to get back in the game like it did Mishawaka.
Final question, what is the most important thing, and who do you have coming out on top Friday in 5A?
I think the Snider offense, if they're able to put up the points that they are traditionally able to do this season, I think they're able to advance and reasonably comfortable, a couple touchdowns. So I have Snider.